would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker, licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. Welcome back, folks. I hope you all enjoyed your long weekend. Last week was a jam-packed full week. It's still full. I still have things I need to finish. So let's jump right in and start the first few minutes of the show off with an update on what's going on with my personal real estate stuff. Before we do that, though, let's remind everyone how to get in touch. The best way is through the website at therebelbroker.com. From there, you can click on the contact button in the menu bar. Send along any ideas, comments, suggestions, or observations that you might have. Always happy to receive those. Of course, while you're there, you're also going to want to click the big red button at the top of the page titled Take the Survey to Support the Show. Why? Well, not just because you want to support the show. While that's an excellent reason, and I love all of you who have done it, and I appreciate it, you'll also be putting yourself into the running for a $50 Amazon gift card. And it just so happens we have hit that time of the month when we do another drawing. Now, I think we're up to 600, somewhere between 600 and 700 bucks at this point, having been given out, and congratulations to the folks who've won that money. But at the beginning of every month, we do a drawing. So let me give you a heads up. Today is Tuesday. This Friday, we'll be doing another drawing. The cutoff time will be, as usual, 5 p.m. Pacific time. So if you get your registration in, if you do your survey to support the show prior to 5 p.m. this Friday, you will be in the running for that drawing for the $50 Amazon gift card. And of course, as always, you have to make sure to give me a good email address for you, because that's how you get paid. When I do the drawing and I pick a winner, I will reach out via email to verify a real human is at the other end of that email address. If you don't respond within 48 hours, I had a problem with this one last time, unfortunately, and that's why I hate having to do a backup person. Then I'll go on to the next person. I'll draw a new winner and reach out to that person. So please make sure that you do use an email address that you check regularly enough that you'll pick up the fact that you've won within 48 hours. Thanks, everyone, for going out and taking the trouble to do this. You're really helping the show, and I truly appreciate it. And the $50 a month winnings for folks is really just a way for me to thank those of you who've gone to the trouble of doing it. Okay, so what do you need to know for the update? I'm holding off on a few things till the end of the year because there have definitely been some lessons learned, and I'm debating whether or not it just makes sense to wait until this entire process is over or until the year is over. But I absolutely have some things that I've learned from this, and I'm not sure they're lessons I like. But we'll get into that. Once this process is over, the one thing I like to do is try to hold off that kind of reflection until after it's done, right? The property has sold, I've done the next thing, and then I can look back and decide what worked and what didn't. It'll be a tough one because at each place I made rational decisions that kind of made sense. Well, we can talk more about it later. But let me give you the update. And maybe not today, but tomorrow, as soon as I get a chance, I will post some pictures of the finished kitchen. As you know, I've been putzing around with this one. I had kind of a crisis relating to getting the work done, so I ended up doing a lot of it myself in terms of painting and tiling and more painting and more tiling. It has finally gotten completed as of Monday. So yesterday, Labor Day was a day of labor for me. I hope all of you enjoyed your Labor Day. I have some more touch-up painting to do, and I mentioned this before, but it looks like, so I won't be right on time. My goal was to have the house listed by today. My guess is that I will miss that by, I worked out last week, so I was covered on all the things real estate related that needed doing. I'm not covered this week. So my guess is I'm going to have this hover around some of the usual slower days and just sort of fit it in where I can. But I'm guessing worst case scenario is that I can put the home on the market Monday, Tuesday next week. So it's delaying me by about 7 days. I'm not happy about that, but you got to go with what you've got. And I'm not entirely hitting the market with everything I would want. We talked about that before. I'm not doing the master bathroom remodel. I'm not doing the second bathroom. Really doesn't need a remodel, so that one never was really a huge issue. But I really would have liked to redo the master bath. It was the second most needed thing that needed to happen in the house. Given what I've just done in the kitchen, I would actually feel pretty comfortable tiling it. But there's just not enough time in order for me to make my goals. So we'll see how it goes. If I'm just not seeing any nibbles, I suppose I can always back up, do a remodel on that, and then market it again later. But as I said, I'm on a timeline. I honestly think we're going to start to see things starting to nose downward a little bit, or at least start to not be as robust starting in October. So I would really like to go ahead and get on the market and get into contract before the end of October and get things all closed and done with. My plan continues to be, and this is something else to mention. I guess that's it for the update, but there's something else I wanted to mention. And maybe this isn't even worth mentioning, but I continue to get, and my feeling is that this is really just one person kind of going out there and kind of wanting to point out that the way that we're talking about things, the stats that we're sharing relating to real estate are not real stats, that there really is no big boom. Now, of course, for some of these folks, no matter how much data you report, it doesn't matter. These are folks who apparently want to see things the way they want to see things. But I'll tell you what, would I be doing what I'm about to do if I didn't believe these numbers? I'm taking actions in my own personal real estate world that absolutely only make sense if what I'm suggesting in the marketplace is actually happening. So I think my actions speak as loud as my words, and they speak to the exact same stats, to the exact same perception of the marketplace. So am I wrong? I might be. There is that possibility that I will be wrong. I have lived long enough now to kick myself for not having taken the actions that I suggested my clients take. I'm pretty good at this. I've managed to give advice to folks that have really helped them out. I have had some clients come back and say, I wish I had taken your advice, particularly for folks who ended up going into bankruptcy on different properties in 2007. But I wanted to point that out. I'm absolutely putting my money where my mouth is, literally, in terms of what I'm telling you and then taking actions based on that stuff. So I hope that, and I guess I'm going on this theory that if one person is out there saying something along the lines of whatever, that there's probably lots of other folks maybe thinking the same thing. So I'm all about sharing with you the truth as I see it, through interpreting the data that I've got. And, for just a quick review, let me pull up the numbers for Santa Clara County, because that's something that I like to do every once in a while. Santa Clara County covers all of Silicon Valley, and I think it's a great way to get an understanding of what is considered to be one of the most robust markets, what's going on in a market like this. And I will include the graphs and whatnot in my Pinterest feed and in the show notes for today's show so that you can take a look at the graphs and judge for yourself where you think things are going. So let's cover those numbers right now. So to kick it off, let's talk about days to sell over time. Days to sell is one of the key measurements. It's how fast your home sells. When you see these numbers, to imply that we have not seen a dramatic increase in what's happening in the market in terms of homes selling is nuts, at least in Santa Clara County. So if we look at September of 2017, and of course, September is just getting started, so let's not look at that. We've only got 4 or 5 days worth of data. Let's go ahead and look at August. So August has 18 days. Is how long it took for homes to get sold. In July, it was 19 days. In June, it was 18 days. In May, it was 17 days. In April, it was 17 days. Now, remember what we talked about in terms of May and June. We talked about those being the greatest return on investment and selling the fastest in past years. This year, we've managed to maintain that same level of activity from April all the way till now. In September, for the first 5 days of September, the average date of time on market for homes that have sold so far in September is 18 days. Prior to that, it was quite a bit more. In March, it was 21 days. In February, it was 28 days. In January, it was 36 days. And let's calibrate ourselves. These are all still number of days that are right about a month, right? Which is very respectable, considered an extremely healthy market, an extremely robust market. And the longest days we had was January of 2017 over the last year at 36 days. Then it declines dramatically. In October of 2016, it was 29 days. November, it was 31. December, it was 34. Now, that's for all of Santa Clara County and all single-family condominium and townhome properties. That is nuts. You can go ahead and see this data at therebelbroker.com. Of course, it'll also be posted to Pinterest. But data like that tells a story. It tells a story that unit homes, regardless of what else you want to believe about whether there's too much inventory or too little inventory, homes are selling ridiculously fast. Now, the next piece of data I want to hit is months of inventory. And I've done this one all the way back to 2007 because I think nothing paints the picture more than months of inventory. And this is how you translate that into English. And this is a great number. Now remember, these are all numbers you can absolutely get from your real estate professional. And let me point something else out. It's not easy for you to generate these numbers yourself. This is one reason why having a good real estate person on your team, I think, is critical. Now, I'm able to get this data because I'm a member of the multiple listing service for the Association of Realtors in Santa Clara County. So I get this data. Now, all realtors will enter the data on their solds. The absolute best, most credible data you can get is straight from the MLS systems within each area that services the area you're interested in. This chart is insane. And take a look at it. And if you look at it, you'll see that our current month is an all-time low. Going all the way back to January of 2007, we are seeing an all-month low in terms of months of inventory. And what that number means is if the number of homes that come on the market and the number of homes that sell per month stays the same moving forward, it would take us X number of months to sell them. Well, if we go back to what looks like January of 2008, we were creeping up on almost 14 months, probably 13.75 months worth of inventory. Now, for those of you who are out in 2008 all the way through to 2010, really, those are good times in terms of acquiring properties. You were able to do a lot of wheeling and dealing, and that number has been ridiculously low since about January of 2012, where we've pretty much had less than 2 months worth of inventory. As of this month, we have less than 1 month of inventory. We have about 3 weeks of inventory in Santa Clara County from approximately 230,000 listings. So I'm not cherry picking a small region that will give me numbers that prove my point. I'm taking the entire freaking county, and that mixes good areas, bad areas, everything. So the average for the whole county is less than a month. Imagine what would happen if I actually picked areas that are more impacted, that are more in demand. It would be even less. Things are selling at an incredible pace. And as I mentioned, this chart will be posted with the show notes at therebelbroker.com and also on Pinterest. So make sure and check those out. Now, next, and possibly the most telling of these numbers, is the sale to list price ratio. And that's expressed as a percentage. And it's basically what percent of your asking price did you get? Well, since, let's see, about February or March of 2012, it has been over 100% on average. That's going back 5 years. That in itself is nuts. However, the last time we went below 102% was actually in 2017. So in January and February and March of 2017, we did see a dip in the percentage of in this ratio. Yeah, it dipped down to just under 102%. So it was about 100.7 101.75 or 101.75%. So still above asking. Folks were still getting above asking price. They just weren't getting as much above asking. Well, as of, February or March, remember, we had a chat about this. We were talking about it at the time because as it related to my goal of selling my property. Well, right now, we are up at above 106% in terms of what folks are getting on average for their homes that they list. That should tell you everything you want to know as well, because if that number is above 100%, that tells you there are more people buying than there are selling. In other words, when you go to buy a home, you're probably competing with several other buyers and you're having to pay over asking price. If there weren't multiple buyers, there'd be no reason for over 100% in terms of sale price to list price calculations. So I wanted to kind of put it away with some stats, simply because I realize there aren't many of you who are kind of, frankly, it fringes or it hangs onto this sort of a conspiracy theory attitude relating to what's going on in the real estate market now. And I'm, if anybody's not pushing what the industry wants everyone to believe, I kind of think it's me. This data absolutely shows that the market is nuts. If I was pushing the standard line that we're getting from all the folks with a vested interest in the world of real estate, the last thing I'd be doing right now is contemplating selling my home. I would be listening to what Zillow says and assuming that 12 months from now, my home's going to be worth another 3% more than it is now, or I can't even remember what it was. It was much more than 3%. Or all these other folks in my profession who are sending out flyers or emails and telling people what to expect from their properties. There are two things that I think are a reality. One, we are absolutely in a booming market. I'm sorry to the folks who may live in now remember, the market is all about the neighborhood you're in. Now, there are going to be some areas, even in Santa Clara County, where the numbers aren't this great, but there are going to be others that are even better than this. That's the nature of average statistics for an entire county. So, of course, you need to get the ground truth for you. Your area may be different. Yes, there are areas in the United States that aren't doing well in real estate. And I have news for you. It's because no one wants to live there. I'm sorry. If people wanted to live there, then you wouldn't be seeing the numbers you're seeing. But all of the primary metro areas, now, obviously, I can do the data. I can run very good data for San Francisco, San Jose, Morgan Hill, Palo Alto, all these if we did Palo Alto's numbers, they would blow your mind. But the point is the metro areas are what are surging here. And I don't want to minimize the pain folks go through in markets where things aren't as robust. But the truth is, when the metros go, that's when big, ugly economic things happen, because there's an awful lot of resources invested in those areas. So, and of course, I can't talk to every small region within the United States. There's not enough time in the day or enough air in my lungs to cover all that. So my goal is to take big news items or items I learned from firsthand experience in ground truth in my market and translate into things that you all can use in your local market, regardless of what the situation is, and make it more universally applicable, or at least give you a way of sticking some gears in your head that have you thinking in a way to evaluate what's right in front of you to determine what the truth might be in your market. Okay. So I hope that's been helpful. I wanted to deal with it. Literally, there's been one person who's kind of come out of the woodwork repeatedly. This is a YouTube subscriber. Oh, by the way, thanks to all of you who have decided to interact with the show on Google+. I did that as an afterthought. There's a Google+ page that you can access if you want to go to therebelbroker.com and click on the little Google+ icon. There's a Google+ community thing, and we just broke 1,000 members of that community, and it's a very tight community. There's not much dead weight there. As soon as someone posts spam or junk or anything, they get banned, so they don't count in that 1,000. It's over 1,000 now, and I just love to thank all of you who jumped in and consumed the show that way. It's amazing, and I truly appreciate it. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more real estate, so don't go away. Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner, broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We just kind of did a really quick assessment of what's going on in the marketplace. Everything we talked about, there will be graphs presented in the show notes of today's show. You should be able to see them no matter where you consume the show. I think the only place the images don't translate over is in the show notes for iTunes. The show notes for any of the direct delivery places. Yeah, I think you have to view it in a web environment in order for those things to show up. And I hope that the data we just covered isn't too surprising for folks. As I mentioned, literally it was one person who seems to be a little bit obsessed with this stuff over on YouTube. And what's funny is they keep creating new accounts to make the same comments over and over. So they clearly are very dedicated to this idea that there's some sort of giant real estate conspiracy going on. But I guess at some point you have to put faith in the numbers that you can see. And there's really nothing I can do to verify the numbers I get directly from the MLS. And since I know where those numbers come from, I think they're pretty trustworthy, or as trustworthy as any numbers can be. And I'm absolutely willing to make decisions based on those numbers, and I think you should be too. All right. I figured the best way to go at this point would be to kind of recalibrate ourselves. Where does everything stand? Of course, the perfect place to start whenever you're reevaluating what your options are or what's going on in the marketplace right now is to figure out what those interest rates are doing, because they are absolutely moving in an interesting direction. Strategies can rise and fall based on where money is costing you the least. Now, right now, interest rates are ridiculously good. The 30-year fixed rate mortgage is really about the midpoint. Its 52-week low was 3.37. Its 52-week high was 4.39, and it currently sits at 3.9. So that's a great rate. I think things are looking really good for the 30-year fixed rate mortgage. The 15-year fixed rate mortgage is almost in the same realm. Its 52-week low is at 2.72, 52-week high at 3.61, and it currently sits at 3.18. So still a relatively interesting difference there. I like to see a little bit of a bigger gap between those two numbers, but if it fits your strategy, I think it's a great way to go. I like the 15-year fixed rate mortgage. If you're going to be a long-term hold person and you can make things work, owning that property 15 years earlier is awesome. And that's obviously a conservative thing. I get a lot of people saying, Rob, you're too conservative. You talk about these super long-term things instead of really leveraging off of other options. So, and I get that. I like a little stability. I like long-term hold. I like getting properties that make me money and keep making me money. And I always, as I said, I evaluate quarterly. So if those numbers change and I see things that tell me this thing's going to stop making me money or there's going to be a huge problem, well, then I change my plan. But I don't change my plan until faced with something really creepy. This house I'm sitting in is a perfect example. I am going to sell it. When I bought it, and as much as 2 years ago, or less than 2 years ago, I had no intention of selling this place. I firmly believed that that the worst I would do would move out and rent it as I purchased another home. The very first loan I got was based on the idea that I would get a loan to purchase another home, and I would get a signed lease agreement on the property before close of escrow, before the lender would fund my loan on the new property. As long as the home was rented, they were going to be fine with that. But that strategy changed when I started gauging the bang for the buck, and that actually came out of, to be honest, I don't normally do a quarterly review of the home I live in. I might review it every year, but I did a review last year, and the numbers just made sense to make this different move. So or at least it showed it as a very attractive option. Okay, next onto the FHA 30-year fixed rate mortgage. This thing is actually creeping down closer to its 52-week low. It is in the low half of the 52-week spread. The lowest it's been in 52 weeks is 3.2%. The highest is 4.1%, and it currently sits at 3.5%. The jumbo 30-year fixed rate mortgage is currently at 4.18%, and it's in the top half of that 52-week range. The low point was 3.5%. The high point was 4.6%. So still a ridiculously good rate, particularly for a jumbo loan, just over 4%. And now the 5/1 adjustable rate mortgage is currently at 3.18%. It is very close to its 52-week high. This one has not gone down quite as much as the other, or anywhere near as much as the others. The 52-week low was 2.8%, 52-week high was 3.25%. So that's still a good option. And, we've talked here about, making the right decision for your cash flow. It may be a situation where you need to get a loan you normally wouldn't do if you're someone like me who prefers the long game. But I'm not opposed to the short game. I'm perfectly fine with saying, you know what, I can't make the cash flow work on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, but maybe I do you could do an interest-only loan. There's a variety of different loans you could do to get that monthly cash flow where you need it to be, and then just have an exit strategy that you exercise at the right time. And that exit strategy could be multiple-pronged, right? You could have a strategy where you refi at some point during that 5 years so that you don't have it convert over into a fully amortized loan and you have your monthly payment jump. Or you could get a sale going and move out and pull your money out and move into something else. So there's always options. It's just a good idea to keep yourself up to date with those. All right, next on our list, construction spending decreased in July. And they're comparing this month to month usually. Construction spending during July 2007 was estimated at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of $1,211 billion, 0.6% below the revised June estimate. So they're basing it on the estimate from June. The July figure is 1.8% above the July 2016 estimate. So it's above what it was last year. So sometimes when they tell you these things about increasing and decreasing, they're giving you things based on expectations. Those types of things are month to month. I actually think this is this could be an easy opportunity for me to scream bloody murder and say, oh, look, construction folks are backing out, not doing their thing. I don't think that's what this reflects, frankly. I think that comparing it to last year and looking at how seasons tend to work, yeah, you know what? July doesn't tend to be a month when things start to jump more in construction spending. You tend to see that in June, right? You see it at the beginning of the construction season. We're kind of in the middle of the construction season. So a lot of those expenditures happen at the front end. So I don't see this as being a huge worry when compared to the previous month. And in comparison to the same time last year, it's actually an increase. So I think it's actually good news. Spending on private construction was at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of $945 billion, 0.4% below the revised June estimate. So again, just comparing it to the estimate, in July, the estimated seasonal adjusted annual rate of public construction spending was $266 billion, 1.4% below the revised June estimate. On a year-over-year basis, private residential construction spending is up 12%. Non-residential spending is down 4%. Public spending is down 6%. So residential construction, which is what we hear about, is up 12%. Non-residential spending is down 4%. That's commercial construction. So those are all good numbers. I think those all reflect good things. What I want to see is for these to shift over into the marketplaces or the segments of the real estate market that make the most sense. And we've covered all that before. I'm still seeing tons of apartment complexes coming online. And I had a really interesting conversation with a real estate agent in Seattle. I actually think he's in the Redmond area. I'm actually just starting a relationship with him. He's going to be my go-to guy for potential investment properties in Redmond, where my son's going to college. That's another thing I'm kind of wrestling with to decide how I want to handle that. But we had a great conversation sometime over the weekend, and we were talking about why there is so much apartment development. It's all apartments. And I was very confused by that, but was also very impressed with how these apartments look. They are upscale, the more higher ceilings. I think I mentioned this in an earlier show. Well, here's why. Apparently, the regulations and the annoyances to build a condo, to build a brand new condo in Washington are prohibitive. It just makes it impossible. So what you tend to see is apartment complexes get built that then get converted into condos after 3 to 5 years, or at least according to this real estate person from the area. And that makes complete sense to me. A market always finds a way to somehow wrestle with regulations. Doesn't always work out great for us, but the idea that these units in a few years will become condominiums, I think is great when they convert. So it'll give folks a chance to buy and kind of freeze their housing expenses right where they are. I'd love to see that happening now. Who knows? Maybe this is a cycle that's always been like this. It just sure did seem like there were a ton of them being built in Redmond right now. Maybe there's always a ton of them being built in Redmond, and there are a whole bunch coming on the market within the next year that were built 5 years ago as apartments. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But it is definitely a bit of ground truth that helped me understand a little bit more about how the market works in the Redmond area. All right. And finally, the last thing I wanted to cover, consumer confidence keeps improving. I'm sharing this one with you from RIS Media. This is the August data, posting a 122.9 level in the latest consumer confidence index from the Conference Board. The expectations reading of the index rose to 104, while the present situation reading rose to 151.2. So that's about where are we? Where are things going, and how do you feel about it? That indicates an increase in all sectors. So not only do I feel good about what's happening now, I feel good about what I think is going to happen. Now, that's a double-edged sword. This is a number that I find interesting because it's something to be happy about, right? Confident people who feel good about what's going on in their lives right now and what will be going on in the next year, tend to be folks who might feel more confident about jumping in and purchasing their own home or moving out of their parents' basement and renting their own place. But there's also a flip side to that. If you feel confident about that, doesn't mean that you're willing to take on more of the bad debt that we've talked about. Some of that crazy stuff that we tend to believe, or at least that I believe and I share with you, tends to feed a bad situation that could ultimately turn around and kick off a very bad situation for everybody. Now, the percentage of consumers who believe business conditions are good, as defined by the index, increased from 32.5% in July to 34.5% in August. The percentage of those who believe business conditions are bad decreased. So we're not only just seeing people who think things are good going up, but also things that think are going bad going down. And then there's the middle ground of folks who aren't sure one way or the other. The percentage of those who expect business conditions to improve, this is an interesting one. The percentage of those who expect business conditions to improve decreased from 22.4% in July to 19.6% in August. The percentage of those who expect business conditions to worsen decreased from 8.4% in July to 7.3% in August. Well, that kind of indicates a higher level of uncertainty, right? Folks don't know which way to go, and both of those numbers, whether things are going to be good or bad, went down. So the number, obviously, of folks who don't know went up. The percentage of consumers who believe jobs are plentiful increased from 33.2% in July to 35.4%. I think that's a great number. The percentage of those who believe jobs are hard to get decreased from 18.7% in July to 17.3% in August. The percentage of those who expect more jobs in the coming months decreased. So they feel good about jobs right now, but in the future, they actually feel like prospects in the future are not going to be as good. Now, it's not a huge drop. It's only a drop from 18.5 to 17.1, so not a full percentage point drop, but an interesting thing to note just in terms of general trend. The percentage of those who expect less jobs in the coming months decreased from 13.2% to 13.0%, so relatively flat. So again, a little bit more introduction of uncertainty, folks who aren't real sure about what's going on. But in general, I think these are all pretty good numbers. I don't think there's anything in here that should scare us. I like stability right now in just about anything I can find. So good. Yay. I don't need things to jump up dramatically or drop down dramatically. I'd love things to stabilize a little bit. I think we could all use a little stability. Don't you agree? All right, folks. Thanks again for taking your valuable time and spending it with me. I do truly hope that every time we finish a show, you've gotten far more value out than you've invested in terms of time. Thanks for sharing your time with me. I'll talk to y'all next time.